morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to be taking a look at a rather nice card, which is going to make all of your Pokemon a little bit beefier. It's Giant Charm, a new Pokemon tool card which could end up being really quite good. It's a kind of thing we've seen a little bit before here and there, but this is just a universal way of increasing your HP. I know, right? Giant Charm comes along and it says the HP of the Pokemon to which this is attached has an extra 30 HP. Oh. Cool, I think. Sounds pretty good. Now, I should mention that over at limitlesstcg.com/translations, it has been translated as Big Amulet, but the reality is, unless we actually get a card based on an in-game item, it's almost impossible to know what it's actually going to be called when it comes over here. So if, for instance, we take a look at Rotom Bike, we know it's Rotom Bike. Rotom Bike is a thing in the Pokemon video games. So we know when it comes over here, it's definitely going to be called Rotom Bike. That's not an issue. Something like this, we don't really know. What we do know is that it gives you an extra 30 HP, and that can be absolutely crucial. This essentially is just your way of saying, you know what? Yeah, we're good. You are not KOing us with your silly attack. Get on out of here. And this isn't a particularly unusual effect. We've seen this a lot. When I saw this, the first thing that really came to me was Fighting Fury Belt. This was the first time I remember having something like this in the Pokemon trading card game. And what Fighting Fury Belt did was you could only put it on basic Pokemon. No, that's a lie. You could put it on whoever you wanted, but it only worked on basic Pokemon. And it gave them an extra 40 HP, and it meant that your attacks did an extra 10 damage. It was good. It was a staple in like every basic Pokemon deck from here to eternity because it was really good. And it was at a stage where basic Pokemon really were getting like all the advantages. We had Prism Energy back then, which was literally just Rainbow Energy, but you didn't have to take a damage counter, but it was only for basic Pokemon. It was in a weird time in the Pokemon trading card game where a lot of players thought the sky was falling because only basic Pokemon would ever be good until the end of time. More recently, we had Giant Cape in Dragons Exalted, and Giant Cape gave any Pokemon an extra 20 HP. It saw very little play. Like, very little play. Which is one thing that worries me a little bit here. We've had one fairly recently that gave you an extra 20 HP, and it really didn't see much play at all. Having said that, we've had a couple even more recently, which did see a lot of play. Buff Padding sees quite a bit of play at the moment. It gives an extra 50 HP to Pokemon with a retreat cost of exactly 4. And then Bodybuilding Dumbbells, which has recently rotated, gave an extra 40 HP to Stage 1 Pokemon. So what we've seen in the past is that plus 20 HP wasn't really good enough to see much play, but plus 40 and plus 50 was. Now, we do need to mention here that there was a big outlier. The outlier was Fighting Fury Belt. And the thing was that Fighting Fury Belt also let you do an extra 10 damage. So it had almost that ridiculous combination of, well, firstly, I'm stopping you getting KOs. And secondly, I am doing enough damage that I am getting a KO. So it kind of put you over the limit to get a KO, while also taking your opponent off the limit of getting a KO. It really was a fun card. Buff Padding is good, but it's limited to Pokemon with a retreat cost of 4. Bodybuilding Dumbbells weirdly did end up seeing quite a lot of play. Something like Granbull in later life did end up seeing a bunch of play with this, just because it gave that extra HP and that extra survivability. But really, with all of these kind of cards, it is just going to come down to the numbers. It's going to come down to the particular matchups, the particular decks you're worried about facing, and how much of a difference this makes when you're playing against those particular decks. So let's take something like Reshiram and Charizard, or Mewtwo and Mew. Now, they are often played together, incidentally. You know, Welder decks are all pretty good. But what they have in common is 270 HP. And one of the things that we're a little bit worried about when we're playing cards like that is playing against another Mewtwo and Mew who's playing the Family Charizard from Hidden Fates. We call it the Family Charizard because it was in like a family focus set over in Japan. They were supposed to be super simple cards that just helped you learn the game, and they are very simple. But this Charizard GX has a GX attack that for 4 energy does 300 damage. Now, you don't do 300 damage for 4 energy, not with any other card that you're putting in Mewtwo and Mew, so it's pretty good. And the worry is that you're going to go second, and on your opponent's first turn they're going to attach an energy, and on their second turn they're going to attach an energy, and on at least one of those turns they're going to play a Welder, and then they're going to be able to Flare Blitz GX to go and get just a flat out KO before you've even really had a chance to do anything. You've had one turn, but you've not been able to attach enough energy, and you've already lost a Pokemon. So what would be awesome is if you could stop Mewtwo and Mew getting a KO with the Family Charizard. Problem is, Giant Charm here puts you from 270 up to 300. You're still getting KO'd, it's not stopping the KO. Something like Bodybuilding Dumbbells, if you could play it. Something like Fighting Fury Bout especially, because that was on basics and let you do the extra 10, yes. For these decks, no. Then again, there are some things out there, take Mega Sableye and Tyranitar. That has 280, so now putting a Giant Charm on there puts you up to 310. And now you are escaping a KO. But then again, Vitality Band is coming in Sword and Shield, and Vitality Band lets you do an extra 10 damage for all of your attacks, so if Mewtwo and Mew's playing Vitality Band, it's a moot point anyway. Or maybe they're playing the Galarian Zigzagoon, who has the same ability as the old Crobat G, that just drops a damage counter on one of your Pokemon, and then you're going down anyway. This is about matchups. This is a kind of card which is unlikely to be a staple in a huge amount of decks, but it's going to end up having a bunch of players going, hang on a second, if I put 1 or 2 of them in my deck, I'm putting the numbers in my favour. Yeah, we're good, that'll work quite nicely. It reminds me very much of Life Dew. Now, Life Dew was another tool card, and Life Dew meant you gave up 1 fewer prize when KO'd. And it really didn't see a huge amount of play. And then at one point, a bunch of Night March players decided, well, hang on a second. If I'm in a Night March mirror match, and I'm taking a KO and then they're taking a KO, and we're just swapping KOs back and forth, what if one of my KOs didn't give up a prize? And then there was, I want to say, a national championships in the US or somewhere around that. And a bunch of Plasma players suddenly decided that popping in a Life Dew would go and win the mirror match. And actually, it worked. So all of a sudden, you have people whacking up a Kyurem, doing a bunch of damage and not giving up a prize, and it just pushed the prize race in their favour. Life Dew saw very little play for a lot of its standard legal life, but then there were a couple little pockets where people went, hang on a second, this will put me ahead in the game. And the thing to remember at the moment is that we've just lost Field Blower to the rotation. I say just, it was months ago. But we lost Field Blower to the rotation. So unless your opponent plays Faber, and a few decks do, especially your Unguru decks, but most decks don't. And unless they do, you're not losing this. This is staying on. Now, maybe there's some kind of tool removal coming down the line, but it's not coming in Sword and Shield, at least not in Japan. So it's not on the cards in the near future. So if you put this on your Pokemon, it's unlikely to be removed. And that's where we come down with this. It is a matchups card. This is a, I'm really worried about this Pokemon. They're getting a KO on me, but they wouldn't be if I had 30 more HP. Oh, look. Now it's working very nicely indeed. As a side note, just to be super clear, I know my example earlier with Mega Sableye and Tyranitar, they do resist Mewtwo and Mew, but even then they'd be doing 280 and getting a KO. so the extra damage would be pretty gosh darn relevant. They would not be able to KO you with a Vitality Band. With the resistance, they'd still only actually be doing 280. You would have 310, so they'd need kind of a couple Zigzagoons to get it rolling. It's just an example. The point is, this is a matchups card. I doubt it's going to be an absolute must-play in a whole bunch of decks, but you should see this coming around here and there. I'm giving it between 3 and 4 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies, that would be barbaric. Unlikely to be a staple in every deck, but absolutely going to be a useful card quite a lot. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. But I'd like to know what decks you plan on using it in and how much play you think it's going to see. So let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WasseyPlays, where we talk about games that don't have Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing is always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.